2024 marked PlayStation's 30th anniversary, and to commemorate, they dropped an entire collection commemorating the PlayStation 1, and I was lucky enough to grab the DualSense Edge from that collection. Controllers with back paddles are essential to my gaming life, and I've been using them for years now, and the DualSense Edge has become my favorite. In a little bit, we'll take a deep dive into what this controller can do, why it beats out my PS5 SCUF controller, and I'll tell you why I think the DualSense Edge is worth every dollar, and who I think this kind of controller is for. Gamers, Friendly Neighborhood Spoon here, and it is time to show you what it's like to take these out of the box. But first, can we talk about the box itself? Look how beautiful this thing is. The whole box itself is obviously an homage to the original PS1 packaging design. The front, you get a beautiful shot of the DualSense Edge itself with the gorgeous OG PlayStation logo on the top right corner. The top, of course, the basic details of the controller. The back, just a look at what the DualSense Edge controller can do. And of course, on the sides, a little more information about the DualSense Edge and what is included inside of the box. Opening up the box, we're greeted with a pattern lining the box interior with everything Sony made for PlayStation in the last 30 years. Memory cards, consoles, handhelds, cameras, everything. And of course, we love a box inside of a box, and the inner box is nothing short of PlayStation 30 branding as well. The front of the box with the PlayStation 30th anniversary logo, and of course, this awesome pattern that they came up with, where they just snuck a 3 in front of the circle. It's a cool play on their existing pattern that they've got going on for these symbols. Now, opening it up, we have a bag, and inside that bag, we have the beautiful case for the DualSense Edge controller. Of course, the first thing you're gonna notice is that it matches the OG PlayStation gray. Spoiler alert, everything matches the OG PlayStation gray. It just hits you in all the feels, and all the right feels. Of course, OG PS1 logo at the very top. We've got zipper handles. What are these called? Do these things have different names? Zipper handles, we're gonna call them zipper handles, with the PlayStation logo on it as well. The last thing you may have noticed is this little secret compartment. It's just a little Velcro window that you can open up, and you can actually charge the controller while it's inside the case. Say if you were traveling, or if you were going over to someone's house and you needed to charge, just open it up, keep it protected, and boom, you're charging your controller while it's in the case. Kinda neat. Now, unzipping this, obviously, you're going to get greeted with the gorgeous DualSense Edge controller. I actually didn't think that the DualSense controller itself could get any more beautiful, but they proved me wrong with the DualSense Edge. Before we jump into everything that's included with the controller, let's take a look at the controller itself. It has the exact same shape as the regular DualSense Edge. It doesn't weigh any heavier, it doesn't weigh any lighter. On the face of the controller, we get to see the beautiful classic gray with a dark gray accents that match the OG PS1 controller, as well as the OG colored PS button in the middle of the analog sticks, and the original symbol button colors on the face buttons as well. The touchpad has the awesome 30th symbols pattern going on as well, and they made it glossy so they stand out and have a nice sheen to them as the light passes by. And if you look super closely to the rear grips of the controller, you'll notice the same pattern embossed on both sides as well. And also on the back of the controller, PlayStation 30th anniversary in text. Now you probably noticed some of the extra buttons and widgets that come on the DualSense Edge, like these switches over here and these extra 2 buttons down below the analog sticks, but we will dive into those later, and we'll first take a look at everything else that comes with the controller. So the DualSense Edge comes with a beautiful braided USB charging cable, a pair of 2 different back button types, 2 long triggers and 2 short paddles, and it even comes with swappable analog stick caps in 2 different lengths with convex caps. So if you're not feeling the stock concave caps, you can swap them for the convex ones. While the longer sticks give you more leverage to have slightly more precise control over your analog sticks. To switch them out, you just have to pull the other cap off and literally just snap the new ones in. And lastly, there's this cable USB-C locking device. That way you can keep your charge going and you're connected to the PS5 at all times without having to worry about accidentally unplugging, which is pretty freaking neat. Back to the controller. The first feature that you're going to notice is on the front of the controller are these 2 extra buttons underneath your analog sticks. These things are really cool because it allows you to switch between profiles and swap out settings for different games, all while you're in game with this controller. But we'll go into further detail about those a little bit later. Let's talk about the main reason as to why I really wanted this controller: the back paddles. This is all up to preference. Of course, I tried the dome ones as well, but I prefer the longer hockey stick lever looking ones just because they seem to fit my hand a little bit better, and I find them a lot more comfortable to use in my gaming sessions than the shorter dome ones. These install super easily on the back of the controller. There's literally a magnet and then there's a slot that you just slide it into, and then boom, it is in. No snapping, no hard pushing, no force needed really. So why are back buttons such a big deal for me? So I play a lot of fast-paced competitive shooter games like Call of Duty, and now my newest obsession, Marvel Rivals. So these 2 back buttons are so essential to my life. I've actually also used them for Helldivers, which also gets pretty hectic and insane. So what you can do with the DualSense Edge, along with any of the third-party controller manufacturers with back paddles, they allow you to map any of the buttons to any of these back paddles. So what that allows you to do is to keep your thumbs on your thumbsticks at all times. And if you're playing a really fast-paced competitive game, you do not want to lose the advantage of not being able to move your character or have control of your aim. So you're gonna want to map those buttons on the back of your controller. That way you're always in the fight, you always have access to your thumbsticks, and you can always be moving and always be aiming. Also on the back of the controller, you have these 2 sliders that allow you to adjust the travel distance of your trigger. So if you want a more snappy, quick response for your L2, R2 inputs, you can shorten the stroke of the trigger to act more like your L1, R1 buttons, allowing you to press the buttons quicker, so it comes out a little bit faster. Now, I gotta show you the last on-controller feature that makes the DualSense Edge so godlike to me. As most of you all know, stick drift is a real issue for gamers, especially if you put in a ton of hours or you do play the more sweaty competitive games like I do. If you don't know what that is, it's basically when your joysticks and the little components inside get so worn down that your system thinks you're inputting a direction even though you are not touching the sticks at all. So you'll just see your little cursor or your character just look around or slightly move forward or slightly walk backward or slightly walk over to the left, even though you are nowhere near your controller. So one of the most brilliant things about this controller is that you can swap out the analog stick modules. This right here is the main reason why the DualSense Edge beats out my PS5 SCUF controller. Apart from already getting stick drift just over a year later, the build quality of the DualSense Edge is superior as well. So to swap out the stick modules, there's this little switch back here. You just need to, thank God I have nails right now, flick the switch and it'll pop open this faceplate at the front. And then you have these 2 levers for whichever one you want to take out. We'll take out the left stick. You just pop it up, and there you have it. It comes out, and they sell these separately. Unfortunately, PlayStation didn't make a 30th anniversary replacement stick module, so the ones that I will be replacing this with, if it needs replacement, at least it won't look bad if I do replace this with black stick modules. But yeah, it's that easy. And then you just slide it back in, the new one, the replacement, you lock it in place, and the faceplate just goes back into where it was as well. The only thing that my SCUF Reflex controller has over the DualSense Edge is that it has an extra pair of 2 back buttons. So instead of just having 2 inputs back here, you could have a set of 4. But something the SCUF can't do is further customization once you boot up the PS5. Welcome to the stream setup. I have the PS5 booted up and the DualSense Edge controller connected. So now let's take a look at what the DualSense Edge can do in the console. Marvel Rivals loaded, of course, current obsession. Let me know who your main is in the comments below. Let's find out what the function button does underneath the analog stick. So I'm gonna hold down the function button and we get this little pop-up here that lets us switch between profiles that we've already created. I'm gonna hit the start button though, and we're gonna go to customize profile just so we can see what that looks like. So we can create a custom profile. We can assign profiles or look at our signed profiles and assigned profiles. And I'll go here, and I'll assign this to my square since there's nothing there. And to customize a profile, we just click in over here, customize button assignments. This screen essentially allows you to remap the controller to however you need. It's kind of crazy because we didn't really get this function growing up, and this now allows us to literally change any button to be any other button. So if you wanted the D-pad to be on the right side, you can actually do that. If you wanted their face buttons to be on the left side, you can actually do that. And this screen is also where you can adjust what your back paddles can do. So right now I've got them set to X on the left side and square on the right side. So what's really neat here too is that we can hold down the function button and hit start, and we'll resume the game immediately, right back to where we were. So let's head out of here. Let's go into stick sensitivity and dead zone. So this allows us to adjust the sensitivity curve and dead zone of either stick, left and right. Sensitivity curve essentially changes the way your stick feels the further along you push the stick outward. So if you wanted to have something a little bit more quicker, if you take a look at the charts, and I'm gonna apologize ahead of time and let you know that I'm trying to explain this as the best that I can. I'm sure there was someone else on YouTube that can explain this so much better. So I'm gonna try and just give you the general idea of everything. So if you look at the graph of the sensitivity curve, you can see that the line gets steeper and then less steep as it goes. So essentially what that means is the more you push your stick outward from the center, the sensitivity and the input will change the further you go. So the steeper the line on the graph, the quicker your input will be. So if it's on the left side, usually where your character moves, your character will move a little bit quicker. And the less steeper it is, the slower it'll become on the outer edges of where you head out. And if this was aiming, that would mean your aim would just speed up as soon as you get to this portion of the graph, and then it'll become a little bit more precise when you head out. I like to play on default just because that's pretty much what I've been playing all my life, also known as linear, so that it's just a constant movement throughout the whole portion of your analog stick. And then for dead zone, this essentially allows you to adjust how far you have to push your analog stick in order to actually place an input into the game. So the larger it is, the more your controller will not do anything until you push past that dead zone threshold. And I just like to keep it on 0 just because I want the quickest response. And now we can get into the trigger dead zone, which is essentially the same thing for the dead zone on the analog sticks. You can adjust how far you want your input to start with how far you have to press down the trigger. So you will not get an input in that gray zone area until you press further than that. Reversely, you can set the range from 100 all the way to 10, say, and your max input will just be immediate. So if you want even more response out of your triggers in the back, you would just reduce the maximum range for it. Although this is something that I wouldn't really mess with, only because you have the sliders on the back of the controller that allow you to adjust how far your triggers need to go to get maximum input. So if you put them to the shortest range anyways, you're going to get the performance and responsiveness that you need. And then we have vibration intensity and trigger effect intensity. Those are pretty self-explanatory. If you're playing any competitive games, you would probably want to turn them off to take away any sort of distractions that you have from aiming or moving from the controller. But truthfully though, I don't think everyone needs a controller like this. Not every gamer or every person needs all the features that this controller offers. So let me take a second to let you know who I think really needs a controller like this. Who needs back paddles? Who needs customizable triggers? Who needs to be able to control their dead zones, swap out buttons? I think the people that need this are players who actually want to take things a little bit more serious. So if you play intense games, if you play really fast-paced shooters like I do, or you want to just be a bit more competitive in games like this, if you're a fan of esports, then the DualSense Edge controller is definitely perfect for you. Who am I kidding though? These features are hella fun, and if you just actually want to pick up the controller just to try it out and maybe have a bit more fun to spice up your other games like God of War and Ghost of Tsushima like I do, or even Helldivers 2, this controller is also perfect for you, so why the heck not? Just pick it up. And that is all I gotta say about PlayStation's 30th anniversary DualSense Edge controller. Thank you so much for watching. I've been Spoon. I love you, stay spicy, and I'll see you real soon.